So we have a new pastor, Father Evans, as you all know, and last Sunday he gave a homily, and he, with jubilation, said that the people of the parish get the priests that they pray for. And he looked over to me, meaning like somehow you guys aren't praying hard enough, because you have Simon and I, operating in your parish. To which I respond, with Father Simon and I living in your parish, and Father Evans being assigned here, what did he do? Think about that. What an honor for me to still. I'm not going to crank out an Elton John song at Mass. I'm still standing. Still here. Don't boo. The kid started crying. I know why. He's like, it's not Father Evans. It's going to be a lot. Some of you share his emotion, but he's a very bright kid. He knows what's coming. Long homily. So I want to welcome everybody, because this is the most proud, most valued, most important moment and hour of my life. Even though I say Mass a couple times on Sunday and once every day, it is still the deepest meaning of my life. I don't know anybody, I haven't met anybody, I haven't read any books that offer me a deeper answer to the meaning of what my life is about. And the greatest answer clearly is a sharing in the intimacy of God's love. It expands my mind, it opens my heart, and enables God to put his own self-presence into me. It's Holy Communion. It's why we celebrate Mass. And I'm welcoming most of the people who come to Mass every Sunday. And for Pat and Ken's 40th anniversary, they have some family members here. We're going to renew their vows after Mass. But I got to tell you this is fascinating. Breaking news, it just came into me. When they were dating, so they dated a year before they married. So 41 years they dated, then they got married for a year, and then got married 40 years. Their first date, she picked up the tab. 40 years ago. That's like, if I was the father 40 years ago of a daughter who went out with some guy, bum, and she picked up the tab, I'd be like, honey, lose this guy. This guy's no good. If this is a sign of things to come, I don't want this son-in-law. There's like 3.5 billion men out there. Find some other guy. Anyway, we'll talk about it later. So, I ran into Father Evans in the chapel this morning, and he gave me his homily, which I will give to you, but I will not walk away, because I have too much fun preaching. But Father Evans had a very good homily today. I said, Father Evans, what are you going to preach on? He said, a couple of simple thoughts. In the first reading, it's very important to know this, especially if you're suffering the loss of a loved one. If you haven't suffered, I was going to say really suffered, but a lot of people's personal sufferings to them are real. When I stand back as a priest and I think, that's not that big of a deal. But to a lot of people, their suffering is their suffering. So I don't want to get too psychological or theological, but if you want to turn your little molehill into a mountain, I could try to talk you off the mountain back to the molehill, but you might not be ready to go. So I struggle with that. And there are others who've truly suffered. June 28th was the anniversary of my own brother's death. My brother died 24 years ago, June 28th, on the feast of St. Irenaeus. I watched my mom go through all that. So I could speak as a first person, not just the loss of my own brother, which was sad, but my mother's dealing with it. So suffering is clearly a big theme in today's gospel. And the first reading, which the pastor made known at the last Mass, which he told me in the chapel this morning a couple hours ago, is always for us to remember God did not make death. That's a huge point. God did not kill my brother, my father, my grandmother, your loved ones, our veterans. God didn't kill them. That was not God's intention. And I think once you accept that as a truth, it may be, I don't think ease your suffering, I don't think solve your problem, but at least open up a deeper, wider perspective. Education used to be, when I went from St. Pat's High School to Northern Illinois, I was a philosophy major at Northern. Supposedly they have a decent philosophy department. I don't know if that's true anymore. Even if it was true then. But in the prospectus for taking the major, It says we're going to open you up to new perspectives. Are people still open to critically examining new perspectives? It's unfortunate when a 17 to 40-year-old has a conversation about something like death or life or the mystery of life everlasting, and they shut it down and they tell me, who's 52, now if you're 82, you're like, well, you're a young whippersnapper. Well, that's what I say to 40-year-olds. But they shut down the conversation. They go, I've been to Catholic grammar school, I'm not open to no new information. I think you just lost the argument by saying that. I think argument meaning a good conversation trying to get to a conclusion. If you're not open to new information, to a stream of God's love and grace to probably perfect our human consciousness, and in a healthy, holy, sacramental way, watch this move, alter your consciousness to get it off of just you. How much of our sufferings, even my brother, use that as a first place example. I was sad for me. I was sad for my mom. People go into serious heart surgeries. People go into serious surgeries where they might not wake up. And I this isn't meant to be a sense of humor or be sarcastic or be lighthearted. Well, it is lighthearted. But I generally say to them, and again, you may boo, don't boo me. I don't like being booed, don't boo me. But if you, sorry, this is just how I think. I know, I got issues. I have professional counselors, and there's a whole team of people working on my mental health. But seriously, this is how I think. If I'm under, and I die, and I don't wake up, sorry, that's how I think. Is that the worst thing that could happen to me? Do you still think that death is the worst thing that could happen to you? I assure you it is not. Waking up, and again, I don't want to go here, but one option is waking up in a fiery cauldron, knowing I rejected love my entire existence, and turned the gift about God and the truth of His existence simply into an adventure of expressing myself and just being who I want to be. Outside of your laws and your judgments, because you can't judge me. I'm just so individualistic. I'm so singular. There can't be a rule that applies to me. It just keeps going on and on and on and on. So we'll get to your point. Okay, I'll get to my point. So we got the woman, much like Pat, who suffered. You were married 40 years, so you only suffered 40. The poor woman in the story, she suffered 38 years. With a hemorrhage. You know what happened? She went and touched his cloak. She was afraid to confront Jesus. So she just went and touched his cloak. The other guy had he gave me this line, he had a lot of public faith. One was a quiet, one was a public one. Hey, Lord, I know you can do this. One was a public, hey, God, help me out. The other one was a quiet, sneaking behind. But in both instances, a man's daughter died, and a woman has this very serious health issue that nobody can help. Quite frankly, see, here's where Jack and Father Evans and I differ. I can't help myself with tangents. I can't help it. Medication's not working. Because those in the medical profession will tell you, 2,000 years ago, a woman with a brain hemorrhage was probably getting her situation worsened by doctors 2,000 years ago than they were probably being helped. Did you get that? So every time she went to a doctor, she probably walked out worse. Right? She didn't get better, she got worse. So, in the midst of their trials, struggles, sufferings, whatever was going on in their heads, and the naysayers around them, in the case of the man, they're like, she's dead, give up. In the case of the woman, she went to all these doctors, they couldn't help her. Metaphorically, science only goes so far. There's no test tube or laboratory experiment that will ever come back positive to find out for you the meaning of your existence. Science does not have that capacity. Science tells us how things work or do not work. Religion, theology, tells us why we are here and where we are going. But in the midst of all their suffering, like people at Mass today, who've lost loved ones, who buried people they loved, underneath whatever looked visible, what is the word? The smoldering fire, the little embers of faith were still burning. They did not give up. Whatever appeared from the outside to be hopelessness, moping, negativity, depression, they kept a smoldering fire. Maybe invisible to the eye, but they still had the faith to approach Jesus. First point, let's ask God that He keep in us the faith to keep searching, to keep looking. Point number 2, once God is found, once they encounter God, and once we have a deep personal experience of Him alone, His love, His peace, His mercy and understanding makes seeking specific answers. Watch this is an interesting move. It makes seeking specific answers anything but necessary. Explain that another way. What if God didn't heal the woman with the head injury? What if God didn't wake up the girl who had died? But they met God. And God, in a way that only God can do, says to me, Jerome, I know you're sad about your brother, but a lot's going to change fast. You're going to enter a seminary. 2 years later, after entering the seminary, they're going to throw you out of the seminary. They will kick you out of your diocese. They'll throw you out of the whole Archdiocese of Chicago. Keep that faith growing. Keep that faith growing. Oh, there's an Irish bishop in Rockford. He likes one of your parish priests. He'll take you. How about that? You'll go on to be a priest. You'll serve. Job, here's this book I'm pushing. This isn't a tangent. It's part of number 2, question number 2. This is called The Three Philosophies. Very short book. It's at the bookstore. Peter Kreeft is the author. It's called The Three Philosophies of Life. It's at the Catholic bookstore downtown across from the coffee house. There's 3 problems we all deal with: vanity, suffering, and love. The book of Ecclesiastes, the book of Job, and the book of Song of Songs. It's an excellent book. My point is, when Job confronts God over why do the innocent suffer, why are horrible things done to good people, this book testifies, as I'm about to share, the answer is not nearly important as meeting the answerer. The answer is not near. Why did my brother die? I got no idea. If you lost somebody you loved and you can't get an answer, why must you keep beating your head against the wall, asking God to show His hand so you can be satisfied in some earthly way that there was a reason for this accident? This is from St. Thomas of Aquinas. There are things which the blessed, whether angels of men, don't know such things, and are not necessary to be blessed. What's your point? There's some things we're never going to know. I'm okay with that. It's not satisfying. It doesn't satisfy the reason, my method of inquiry, my desire to have all the answers. But with God, He's God. He's bigger than an answer I could possibly even understand. So, the encounter with God, when Job in this book and in the book of Job finally meets God, what was his most pressing questions melt away in the all-consuming fire of God's presence. So in the midst of difficulty, tragedy, hardship, heavy burdens, draw nearer to Christ. And one of the biggest mistakes we all make at times is confusing His silence with His absence. We're Catholic Christians. Whenever you go to a Catholic Christian church, there's a crucifix. It's there for a reason. It's an answer. My son died. My son died. Your son didn't die. Well, yeah, he's physically dead. We believe in the resurrection. God, who did not bring death into the world, permits it to bring about a much more glorious good that might not satisfy your emotions on earth. But when did your emotions become the chief criteria of reality? When did people's feelings become the chief means of understanding reality. Think about that. They say now with young people, if you disagree with, this is what they say. Who's they? A lot of people and some studies. If you disagree with young people, and I would say immature people too, they think the disagreement makes you not like them. I totally like you. You're just totally wrong. And God is the answer. Here's the final point. The relationship to the answerer is greater than any question. My relationship to God is far greater than any kind of specific words that are ever going to come out of your mouth or my mouth or anybody's mouth. My relationship to Christ, one moment in His presence, exceeds all we even began to think we know. One moment in God's presence exceeds all we ever thought we know about God, about ourselves. Sorry, this book is awesome. About everything. Last tangent, and you get your conclusion. I knew I was vain and self-interested, and you know, my joke is not a funny one. I'm not much, but I'm all I think about. This book has cemented in my heart, not just my mind, how illusory my image of myself is. And if a priest who prays every day, who tries to live out his priestly life, is making this public declaration about his egocentric self-awareness, is anybody man enough and woman enough to pick up a book and actually ask the question of how much of your life are you living right now? That's an illusion. It has nothing to do with God, the purpose for which He made you, or the deeper satisfactions by which you were created. Once the heavenly union takes place, once I see my brother again, once you see your deceased relatives and friends again, any bitterness or resentment or negativity or sorrowful feelings will evaporate in the presence of the all-knowing, all-powerful, and all-loving God. May you find Him now.